Did your view of J.D. Vance change at all after you did the interview with him?
Did what?
Your views and your opinion of J.D. Vance heading into the interview versus after?
Mine didn't, because I talk to these guys all the time. And when I say these guys, I mean politicians and Republicans. So I know they're always going to be like that. They're never like this, oh, everyone says after the show, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I kind of liked her. You know, it's like, yeah, everybody's a monster till you talk to them. And, you know, are there things we're never going to agree on? Yeah. But, you know, a guy like that, I knew it. I knew that kind of guy. They're happy warriors. You hit them with, you know, three really, really hard-hitting things that say you can't keep doing that. And they answer it, they evade it, but they don't hold it against you. It doesn't turn hateful. That's who it is. Some people don't want that. They want, you know, they would never be happy unless J.D. Vance walked out and I punched him in the nose. That's the only thing that would satisfy certain people. I don't play that game. I like to actually talk to people.
Losing my mind on what's happening right now, especially in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the Nazi in Maine. This really, really, really worries me. So
you
I'm not
might
sure.
run against Mondani.
I would love to run against. If I was going to run, it would be here. Can I win here? I have no idea. I don't know the demographics, whether they get enough votes. There's a lot of people who like me in New York City. I know that. I've done a lot of good in New York City when I wasn't thinking about politics, whether it's the Barstool Fund, pizza places. So it wasn't for show. I've had a real job. I've done real things, unlike these clown politicians who have never had a job and never been in the real world for a day.
Right.
But the people voting for these people who just won are like these young, white, like Ivy League-ish, elite-ish women. It's like, who are they? Like, they'll never vote for me. They'll never believe in common sense.
When you're unhappy, you want to make other people unhappy, and that's the key. Dave?
How happy New York is right now? Do you know how cool it is to see your mayor? Wait, no. Do you know how cool it is to see your mayor jump in a pool with a kid?
I don't give a damn
because
about the mayor jumping in the pool. I care about the future of New York. I care about my safety. I care about my children's life.
Homicides are down in New York City.
Yeah.
Rent freezes are happening. Campaign promises are being delivered.
They're punishing capitalism.
You're saying
New York is a city of capitalism with a socialist mayor. He's going to drive everyone to Panama.
No,
he's going to drive everyone
he's
to
not.
Puerto Rico. How many billionaires are already leaving?
Yeah, I just think that like y'all are missing the.
I will always and consistently, if given an option to vote for somebody to my left, I will vote for that person, because it's not like the people to my left are going to get their entire slate of policy ideas implemented. That's not how the system works. What we need is people to my left to be in power so they can drag the Overton window back to sanity. The right has moved off the spectrum to the right. Okay? And that's made it so the center has gone right as well. We need people who are to the left of me to drag us back to sanity in this country. And so I love it that it appears to be the case that Daria Liza is actually like a legit communist. But you know what? God fucking bless. I love it. I'm not that. I'm more of a social democrat or a democratic socialist, depending on the day and depending on my mood. But God bless that there's some people to my left who are saying some shit like this, because it's only through pulling the spectrum back to the left that we will ever get anything even remotely resembling social democracy and improving the lives of regular people across this country.
Stephen A. Smith just completely lost it on live television. Watching his own party hand itself over to Socialists and family, I need you to sit with that for a second, because this isn't some random guy on the internet losing his mind. What's up, family? So real talk. He said what a lot of people are already thinking, and the receipts are right here waiting for us. New York just elected Zohran Mamdani as we know it, a man who calls himself a democratic socialist. Flat out, no hiding it, right to be the mayor of the biggest city in this entire country as he is. And Stephen A., a guy who built his whole career on sports and media, not politics, is out here sounding the alarm on his own side, on the Democrat Party. He's been aligned with for years. And so we're going to break this down piece by piece. We're going to name what's fair on both sides. And then I'm going to give you my real verdict on where this actually headed for 2028 and beyond. Now, here's what got my attention first. Stephen A. brought up what happened in Maine and put it right next to what's happening in New York. And he said it in his own words, really, really worries him. Think about that phrase for a second. This is the man who talks for a living, who doesn't scare easy on camera, and he's using the word worried about his own party's direction. That's not nothing. Then he goes deeper, and this is where it gets interesting because he starts naming names inside his own party. He brings up Hakeem Jeffries versus Chuck Schumer, and he says plainly he thinks Schumer's actually in more danger than Jeffries if Alexandria Ocasio, AOC, ever decides to run for Senate. Now, why would he say that? Because he's looking at the receipts and the receipts don't lie. Jeffries has been endorsing candidates and those candidates have been losing. Meanwhile, Mudami's been endorsing candidates and those candidates keep winning. 7 months into the job. 7 months. That's not a fluke, family. That's a pattern. And here's what this actually looks like in real life. Imagine you're a manager at a job. You've been there for years. You built your reputation on knowing how to pick winners, how to build a team that performs. Then the new guy walks in 6, 7 months on the job, and every single pick he makes outperforms yours. In front of the whole office, in front of leadership, in front of everybody watching. That's not just embarrassing. That starts a real conversation about who actually has the power now. And that's exactly what Stephen A is pointing at inside the Democrat Party. The new guys' picks are winning, and the old guards' picks are losing. And everybody in that building is starting to notice who's really running things. But here's where Stephen A takes it even further. And this is the part that should worry every single Democrat watch. He says, look, if this socialist message plays great in a Democrat primary in a deep blue district, but it doesn't have a snowball's chance in the general election in the suburbs, in swing states, then what are you actually doing is handing the White House to the other side in 2028. Read that again. You're not winning anything nationally with this. You're just proving to the country the party split right down the middle. Now, to be fair, and I want to give credit to where it's due here, Stephen A didn't just come out swinging with no nuance. He said Mudami's right that affordability is a real problem in this country. He said Mudami's right that working class folks have felt ignored for years by both parties, honestly. And I'm going to sit here and not pretend at all that that's not true, family, because it is. Over here, we speak the truth and how to have the most honest conversation as possible with receipts and breaking it down in plain English. So people are struggling with rent, with groceries, with just making it week to week. But here's where it doesn't add up. Once you actually pull back the curtain and look at the real receipts behind the sales pitch, let's start with the rent freeze because everybody's cheering it like it's free money falling from the sky. And I get why. Rent in New York is brutal. It's been brutal for years. And when a man stands up and says, I'm freezing your rent, of course people are going to celebrate that. But hold on, family. Here's the question. Nobody in that crowd is asking, if you froze the rent, did you also freeze the price of materials? Did you freeze the cost of labor? Did you freeze what a plumber charges when a pipe burst at 2 a.m? Because none of that got frozen. Only one number on that page got frozen. And everything connected to that number kept moving. And this is where it starts to matter. Because nothing in this world is actually free. Somebody always pays. That's not a political opinion. That's just how money works. If the rent's frozen, but the costs keep rising, the landlord's eating that difference. And the landlord who's eating loses month after month, doesn't just sit there and take it forever. He cuts corners. He delays repairs. He stops fixing the boiler until it completely breaks instead of catching it early. So the renter still pays, just not with a check. They pay with mold, with broken heat in the winter, with a building that slowly falls apart around them. That's the real cost of free. Now let's get into the billionaire math because this is the part that gets repeated the most and explained the least. You hear the talking point that the top 10 richest people made $500 billion. Like that money got pulled directly out of your pocket. But think about it like this. When your boss's business triples in value, did your paycheck shrink? No. Usually the opposite happens. More locations open, more people get hired, more opportunity gets created around that growth. A bigger pie doesn't mean your slice got smaller. It means the whole table got bigger. That's the part the sales pitch always leaves out. And here's the pattern, family. And you can check this one for yourself. Every single time a city goes all in on this approach, heavy taxes, price controls, punishing the people at the top, it starts with good intentions and a packed room cheering. But quietly, month by month, the businesses start moving out. The investment dries up, and the tax base that was supposed to fund all these promises walks right out the back door while everybody's still celebrating in the front. Now, to be fair, I understand the frustration driving people straight into this. Rent is brutal. Wages have felt stuck for years, while the cost of living just keeps climbing. People are tired of being told to wait, tired of being told next year will be better. That frustration is real and it's earned. But frustration doesn't make a bad economic plan into a good one. It just makes it an easier plan to sell to people who are exhausted and looking for anybody to say something different. And that's exactly what's happening right now in New York City, family. And it's exactly why we need to look past the applause and look at the actual receipts. So without further ado, let's check out what Stephen A. Smith had to say.
And if you're the Democratic Party, you got to pay attention. You know why? Because your leadership in the House and in the Senate could be in a world of trouble. Now, I think less for Schumer in the Senate than it is for Hakeem Jeffries in the House, but nevertheless, it could happen. Remember, Hakeem Jeffries endorsed candidates. His candidates lost. Zoran Mamdani's candidates won. So, by the way, because of that, what does that mean? That means he's gaining traction and he's gaining power. And when we look at Mamdani and what makes him successful, let's understand this. As a politician, what is he doing? He can raise money. He can organize young and progressive voters. His endorsements carry real weight now, as we've seen. He can beat the establishment, or he can beat establishment Democrats in deep blue districts. These are the kind of things that he's established already. This is 7 months on the job. And when you consider the fact that his candidates that he's endorsing are the ones winning, and Hakeem Jeffries and the candidates that he's endorsing are not winning, this is the man that was the successor of Nancy Pelosi. When Nancy Pelosi endorsed you, you usually won. If that's not the case with Hakeem Jeffries, how do you think that's going to bode well for him in the House? Just on this show, my show, Straight Shooter, with Stephen A., when we had Senator Alyssa Slotkin on the show the other day, she talked about new leadership being needed within the Democratic Party. Knowing that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are there already. Now, Chuck Schumer's been around a long time, and few raise money better and more effectively. But who knows what's going to happen if AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the representative out of the Bronx, who knows what's going to happen if her and Zoran Mamdani really become a partnership and a pair, and he's out there campaigning on her behalf. What is that going to translate into? These are the kind of things that we got to concern ourselves with now. If you're a Democrat in the United States, particularly in New York City, Zoran Mamdani is coming. And if he's coming, what does that mean for the rest of America? Because I got questions. Where has socialism ever succeeded? If so, tell us where that is. How is it going to succeed in New York? How are you going to sell that in a capitalistic society? You might do it in New York with young voters. What about the people in the suburbs? What about them? You really, really think this kind of message is going to resonate with them? Because, ladies and gentlemen, what we're talking about here is this. If it resonates within the Democratic Party, but it doesn't have a snowball's chance of resonating in a general election, then you're basically handing the presidency to the GOP in 2028 as well. That's what you're doing. Because the party, the Democratic Party, will have been perceived as being fragmented. That's what I'm seeing when I see Zoran Mamdani. That's what I'm looking at, and that's what I see when I see his ascension taking fold before our very eyes. Is he right? Affordability being a real problem? You're damn right he is. Is he right that the working class has been ignored? You're damn right he is. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last year, the top 1%, when you look at some of these people and what they bring to the table, about the top 10 richest people in the country, they've generated nearly or more than $500 billion for themselves. Whereas over the last several decades, people have been lucky if they got a $9,000 raise. spanning decades. That is what Mamdani is speaking to. That is what he's focusing on. That is what is resonating. But in the end, what it's going to do is serve to divide the Democratic Party. It's not going to have any effect on the Republicans as it pertains to what their plan of action is, because they're going to ask you to choose between capitalism and socialism. Before all of that, it's up to the Democratic Party to find a way to make a decision. Who's going to lead the party going into the future? If it's Zoran, it's socialism. Unless somebody that resonates as effectively is able to step up to the plate and ensure that the Democratic Party is not going to be at the mercy of the mayor of New York City. That's what this comes down to. Did you see what else Mamdani said? Said, quote, "We don't have to ask ourselves what life looks like if a socialist wins. I won last November. And over the course of these last 6 months, what we've delivered for working people are the very things we were told were impossible. And we've done all of these things while also delivering the lowest recorded crime in our city's history. That's what it looks like to have democratic socialism. And what you're seeing is that New Yorkers experienced this for 6 months and made the decision that they wanted to see more of it on the national stage as well. I'm not buying that yet, but it sounds damn good. What I want to know is that when you freeze rent, what else have you frozen? Have you frozen the price of equipment? Have you frozen maintenance? Have you frozen those things? Because those things still need to happen, and it costs. Nothing's free. And if you're talking about taxing, and more taxing, excuse me, you're going to run businesses out of New York City, and then ultimately, where's the money going to come from? To develop a middle class, let alone pay them. That's how I'm looking at things. Obviously, he's looking at it a bit differently, which is why I'm doing this segment, because I can't wait to talk to him. I've been anxious to have him on the show to ask him some of these questions. I'm waiting to see whether or not he's going to accept it and what he's going to have to say once he ultimately does. Because in the end, the money has to come from somewhere. Nothing is free, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely, positively, nothing is free. If you're not paying, it's because somebody else is. And if you want to say it's the wealthy that's going to be paid, well, if they're taking their asses out of New York City, who's going to be here to pay it? Eventually, it'll trickle down to that middle class that was supposed to be being spared. And where's that going to leave the city? These are just questions. I'm not pretending to have the answers. I don't know. But they're legitimate questions that I need answers to, coming from a proud, renowned democratic socialist like Zoran Mamdani. Inquiring minds want to know. Can't wait to talk to him. I'm going to stay on this subject for a while because it's not going anywhere. And most importantly, it's going to have a collateral effect on the rest of the Democratic Party and ultimately a general election if things keep going the way that they are going.
All right, family. So you heard it. Now, let's get into the part nobody wants to talk about, right? Because socialism isn't some brand new idea. Nobody's ever tried it before, family. It's got a track record, a long one. And that track record is not the shiny vision people are getting sold on a stage with a microphone and a crowd chanting behind him. Look at what's happening overseas right now. Today, while this is airing, well, me recording this video, you got heavy taxation eating people's paychecks before they even see the money. You got an energy struggle so bad that people are dying from heat because the systems in place can't keep up and the policies made it worse, not better. You got quality of life issues that never make it into the campaign speech. Because why would they? That doesn't win you an election in a deep blue district full of people who never had to live under it. And here's where it gets interesting, because the countries that get pointed to as the success stories, the ones people love to bring up in the argument, they are small. They are wealthy already. They are, how can I put this? Homogeneous, meaning one culture, one people, and not a lot of outside pressure on the system. Now, compare that to a country like ours, the United States, massive, spread out across 50 states, more people, more diversity, more competing needs, more strain on any system you try to run from the top down. You cannot take a model built for a small, tight, wealthy nation and just drop it into a country this size and expect the same result. That's not how it works. And deep down, everybody pushing this knows that. They just don't say it out loud. And let's break down the free healthcare piece too, because that's always the headline, right? Free healthcare sounds great. Sounds like exactly what working people need. But here's what this actually looks like in real life, family. Free doesn't mean nobody paid for it. It means you already paid for it before you even got sick. Every single week out of your check before you see a dime of it. So now you're working the same hours, maybe even more, and taking home less in exchange for a system you're told to be grateful for. That's not a gift. That's a mandatory subscription you didn't get to choose the price on. And here's the real division opening up right in front of us. And this is bigger than most people want to admit. This isn't moderate Democrats fighting Republicans anymore. This is a full-on fight over what the Democrat Party even stands for at its core, as you heard what Stephen A. Smith said. You got one side that still believes in the old system, work hard, build something, keep more of what you earn. And you got a new side that believes the system itself is the problem. A lot of people would say that is driven from individuals that's has a lot of entitlement, but doesn't want to work for anything. And on top of that, needs to be torn down all the way and rebuilt from scratch. That's the new side. Those are two completely different visions trying to survive under one party banner. And eventually, family, one of them got to give. And this is where the bigger conversation comes in, because there's a decision every single voter watching this is about to be forced to make, whether they're ready for it or not. Because let's be real for a second. It's easy to sit on a podcast or a sports show or behind a microphone and critique socialism. It's easy to say the right thing, sound reasonable, sound like you're thinking it through, but it's a whole different thing to actually walk into that booth and vote against it when your name's on the ballot and the choice is staring you in the face. And here's the pattern I need you to notice, family, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. People claim to be moderate. They claim to be reasonable, open-minded, right down the middle. And then every single election, somehow, some way, they find a brand new excuse to vote the same direction they always vote. It's never actually about the policy. It's always about the excuse. Now, here's why 2028 changes everything. The usual excuse, the easy one, the one that's been working for years. It won't be sitting there anymore. That means the choice becomes real for the first time in a long time. No more hiding behind one man's name, our current president. No more using one personality as a reason to avoid the actual question. And what I mean by one man's name, no more hiding behind it, as they would call it, Trump derangement syndrome, Trump bad. So let me make the point plain, family. If you complain about the direction things are heading, but you keep voting the exact same direction every single time, you're not actually moderate. You never were. You're just quiet about where you really stand. And quiet doesn't count for much when the receipts aren't sitting right there in front of everybody. So here's my final verdict, family. Talk is cheap. The vote is where the truth comes out. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 says, a man reaps what he sows, and that applies to nations too. Sow dependency, reap shortage. Sow hard work, reap growth. You don't need church to understand that. You just need common sense. What you tolerate today, you'll be living inside of for years. So drop your take below. Tell me where you stand. Like this, subscribe, turn on your post notifications. Spread that peace, love, and positivity, and let the love supersede the hate, family. On that note, peace.